Your temperature climbs to 102. Your muscles ache. You feel weak, foggy, miserable. Every instinct you have treats this as something going wrong, a malfunction, a system failure, a problem to make stop as fast as possible. Here's what almost nobody tells you. That fever isn't your body breaking down. It's your body doing something deliberate, coordinated, and precisely engineered, a weapon your immune system built on purpose, hundreds of millions of years before medicine existed to argue with it. In 1975, physiologist Matthew Kluger ran an experiment that would permanently change how scientists understood fever. And he didn't use humans at all. He used desert iguanas. Reptiles can't generate fever the way mammals do. They're cold-blooded, unable to internally raise their own body temperature. So Kluger infected iguanas with bacteria, then gave them a choice, a habitat with a gradient of temperatures from cool to warm, and let them pick where to sit. The infected iguanas consistently moved toward the warmer zones, deliberately raising their body temperature by several degrees through behavior alone, functionally giving themselves a fever using the environment instead of their own physiology. Then Kluger ran the critical test. He took infected iguanas and forced some of them to stay in cooler zones, preventing that self-induced fever. The iguanas kept artificially cool died from the infection at dramatically higher rates than the ones allowed to heat themselves up. The fever wasn't incidental to their survival. It was, in a very direct sense, the treatment. If a few degrees of extra heat could be the difference between an iguana living or dying from infection, the obvious next question is what heat is actually doing at that level. Many of the bacteria and viruses that infect the human body have a fairly narrow temperature range where they replicate most efficiently, comfortably tuned to your normal baseline. Push the internal temperature up even a few degrees, and that replication advantage starts to erode. Some pathogens slow down considerably. Some become measurably less effective at multiplying. At the same time, elevated body temperature doesn't just work against the invader, it actively upgrades your own defenses. Research on immune function has found that several types of white blood cells become more active and more mobile at elevated temperatures, and certain immune signaling processes speed up under mild fever conditions. Your body isn't just making the environment worse for the infection, it's simultaneously making its own soldiers faster and more effective. Fever, in other words, isn't heat as a side effect of your body fighting an infection. Fever is your body fighting the infection, using heat as one of its primary tools. Kluger's iguana findings weren't an isolated curiosity. Once researchers started specifically looking for fever's function across different species, similar patterns kept appearing. Physician and fever researcher Philip Mackowiak, who spent much of his career studying the history and biology of fever, has documented that a regulated febrile response, not the chaotic, uncontrolled overheating of heat stroke, but a precisely calibrated rise in the body's internal temperature set point, appears across an unusually wide range of vertebrate species, suggesting deep evolutionary roots for a mechanism that costs the body significant energy to run. That energy cost matters here. Mounting a fever is metabolically expensive. It can raise your resting energy expenditure substantially. Evolution rarely preserves an expensive trait across hundreds of millions of years of vertebrate history, unless that trait is earning its keep. To be clear, this doesn't mean every fever should be left untreated, and the question of exactly when and how much to intervene in human fevers, especially in vulnerable patients, remains a genuinely debated area in clinical medicine. This is a decision for you and a doctor, not a YouTube video. But the underlying biology is not seriously disputed. Fever is a regulated, functional immune strategy, not a broken thermostat. Here's where this stops being a story about iguanas in a heat lamp. Modern life has trained almost all of us to treat any rise in body temperature as an enemy to be eliminated immediately, completely, without question. And that instinct itself makes sense. Fever is uncomfortable, and severe or prolonged fevers can genuinely be dangerous and need medical attention. But underneath that discomfort, your body isn't malfunctioning when it heats itself up in response to a threat. It's running a defense system old enough to predate mammals, one an infected lizard in a 1975 laboratory was using with no thermostat except its own behavior. This is very possibly why feeling sick, foggy, and low energy during illness isn't purely bad news either. Some researchers studying sickness behavior, the fatigue, appetite loss, and social withdrawal that accompany infection, argue this cluster of symptoms may itself be a coordinated strategy, redirecting your limited energy away from everything except fighting the infection in front of you. You are not broken when your body turns against comfort in favor of survival. It has been making that exact trade for longer than almost any other decision your body knows how to make. The iguana in Kluger's lab had no medicine, no thermometer, no understanding of bacteria. It only had a patch of warm sand and an ancient instinct telling it to sit there. Your body inherited the same instinct. Wrapped now in fur-free skin and an internal thermostat instead of a heat lamp, but running the same fundamentally old strategy, turn up the heat and make the fight harder for whatever doesn't belong there. The fever was never the enemy. It was always the response.